Good morning. We will begin the program now. Please continue to serve yourselves, but turn off your cell phone or put it on silent mode. My name is Ben Dupuy. I'm a member of the BGR Board of Directors and chair of the Breakfast Briefing Committee. I'm pleased to welcome you to BGR's final breakfast briefing of 2023 at First Horizon Bank. I want to extend our gratitude to WWNO New Orleans Public Radio, which will rebroadcast this event on Tuesday, December 19th at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. We hope you'll take advantage of the question and answer portion of today's program. It's easy to participate. Follow the instructions at your seats to access the online Q&A form. The QR code will also appear on the screen during the Q&A session. If you prefer to write your question, please hand it to a BGR staff member and include your name if you want to be identified. Following the program, there will also be a QR code to complete an online survey designed to gather your feedback. Again, we will show that code on the screen, or you may refer to the instructions. The best way to stay on top of all BGR events and research is to become a member. BGR is a private, nonprofit, independent research organization dedicated to informed policymaking and the effective use of public resources for the improvement of government in the New Orleans metropolitan area. We regularly engage with our members about our public policy work. BGR values this dialogue, and we appreciate our members' support in amplifying BGR's good government recommendations. If you're not currently a member, visit bgr.org and join the ranks of empowered citizens working to improve local government. We also encourage you to follow BGR on social media. And now, to introduce our topic this morning is Becky Mowbray, BGR's President and CEO.
Thank you, Ben. I'd like to recognize First Horizon Bank for its generous sponsorship of the BGR Breakfast Briefing Series again this year. Your support allows BGR to make these events free and available to the public. It is wonderful to see everyone this morning. So many old friends and new here in the crowd. We're really glad you could join us. I'm Becky Mowbray, and I serve as BGR's President and CEO. BGR's research reports identify solutions to some of the most complex challenges facing local government in Jefferson, Orleans, and St. Tammany parishes. BGR's work also enhances government accountability. We also help inform voters with independent, nonpartisan analysis of local ballot propositions. This fall, we analyzed a New Orleans school facilities tax renewal and 2 city charter amendments. Most recently, we wrote a letter urging the City Council to improve how it evaluates funding requests by the Sewerage and Water Board. These are just a few of the 11 reports and letters that we published this year. BGR's breakfast briefings advance our mission by allowing citizens to hear directly from public officials and experts on public policy issues vital to the greater New Orleans area. As Ben mentioned, this is our final breakfast briefing of the year, and we are live streaming this event as well as holding it in person for all of you here in the room today. We will post a video replay of this event on bgr.org. Today's topic is the New Orleans Police Department. If you were to ask residents of New Orleans to list their greatest concern, many would say crime. During the past few years, they have watched the NOPD struggle to control rises in violent crime. The department has finally made some progress this year, but it is doing that with a reduced police force, another concern for many residents. With a new superintendent at the helm, New Orleanians have many questions. What priorities and major initiatives will the NOPD focus on? How is NOPD working toward these goals? What are the department's plans to improve public safety in the city? What must New Orleans do to comply with the legal settlement or consent decree with the U.S. Department of Justice? And does the NOPD have the necessary resources it needs to rebuild its force and have its officers perform at a high level? Here today to serve her insights on these and other issues is Ann Kirkpatrick. She was sworn in on November 1st as the first woman to lead the NOPD. With 40 years of policing experience, including 20 years as a chief of police, Superintendent Kirkpatrick brings a wealth of knowledge to her new role. Originally from Memphis, Tennessee, she earned a master's degree from the University of Memphis and later went on to receive her Juris Doctor at the Seattle University School of Law. She has a proven track record of transforming police departments and reducing violent crime, most notably during her tenure as Chief of Police in Oakland. There, she increased police accountability and transparency, improved procedural justice, and implemented equity-based decision-making. These changes coincided with a 20-year low homicide rate and a decrease in non-fatal shootings during her tenure. Prior to Oakland, she served as bureau chief in Chicago, where she was the liaison to the DOJ while the Chicago Police Department was under investigation for civil rights violations, resulting in a consent decree. Her previous leadership roles took place in Washington State, including as Undersheriff of King County, where Seattle is located. Superintendent Kirkpatrick is also a national instructor in law enforcement leadership, offering guidance on bias and diversity, emotional intelligence, and leading generations. We are honored to have someone of her caliber leading our police department, and we are thrilled that she is with us today. At the conclusion of today's presentation, I will be moderating a Q&A session. I'm sure there will be many questions after Superintendent Kirkpatrick's thought-provoking discussion. As Ben mentioned, you can access the online Q&A form using the QR code in the instructions at your seats, and I'll receive the questions up here. The views expressed in this program are those of our speaker. Please join me in welcoming Ann Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for introducing me this morning and giving me an opportunity to speak out with you all. Actually, your main focuses are the topics that I want to address with you. Everyone has been asking, where are we going? And that is exactly what our officers and our staff also want to know. I have been in 10 agencies in my 40 years. Of those 10 agencies, I was the chief of police in 4 different cities, and this is my 5th to be a chief of police. There are certain axiomatic principles. When one comes in and takes over an organization, the rank and file and the staff, they want to know 3 things. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? And what is my role? And that is what I want to do with you, is to tell you primarily where are we going. Next Tuesday, I will be having my staff meeting with all of our chiefs, our captains, and our day shift lieutenants, and they are going to be given an hour, hour and a half of exactly a little bit more in depth of what I'm going to be sharing with you today, so that everybody, whether you're a member of the police department or you're a member of this community, I want everybody to know where we're going. So let's start with that. From the very beginning, when I even interviewed for this opportunity, there were 3 main blisters, if you will, that needed to be addressed. Number 1, and this is gold number 1, has to do with crime. Crime has been rampant in the city of New Orleans, which is true in most major cities around the country. But only a year ago, New Orleans was the murder capital of the United States. Now, that is based on a per capita situation that is not in raw numbers, that is in per capita. But regardless, the number one issue in New Orleans must be the crime, addressing that. And within the crime issue, we look at crime from two different perspectives: property crimes and people crimes. People crimes will always take priority over property crimes, although a person who's a victim is a victim regardless. However, because people crimes impact your physical safety, we prioritize our responses and our triages to people crimes. Now, I will drill down a little bit more, and the number one issue regarding people crimes will be crimes of violence involving guns. So gun violence will be the number one focus for the police department for next year. How do you do that? There are strategies that have already started to be implemented. I have 5 executive leaders right now in another city looking at the implementation of a strategy I am familiar with that we will be implementing here in New Orleans, and the whole focus is on those who pick up guns and what we would call a trigger puller, someone who is literally going to use a weapon. How do we disrupt that cycle, and how do we prevent those shootings from occurring? So that will be number one. Number two has to do with the consent decree and the fact that New Orleans has been under federal oversight for 11 years. Now, a consent decree, for those who do not really know the term, is actually like a contract. It's a contract between the city and the federal court that requires the police department to have proof to the federal judge that we have hit certain reforms. Let me give you an example so you can get your head around it. Let's say that one of the reform measures is that the federal court says, we want every single police officer trained on de-escalation. So then we turn internally and we send every 900 officers through training classes on de-escalation. Okay, so once that's done, you go back and you say, Your Honor, we have met that reform. And the New Orleans Police Department has about 488 around that number, but number may not be specifically correct, but it's in the ballpark. That's what we are talking about when you hear about advancing in the consent decree. We are talking about proving to the court that we have met all of the defined reform measures. So what's the goal then? Well, the New Orleans Police Department is very close to have finished all of the requirements in that document that we call the consent decree. My goal is that hopefully at the top of the year, February, March, that we as a police department, we've got our city attorneys here, they're fabulous, but we collectively as a police department with our city attorneys would go before the judge and say, Your Honor, we believe we have met every single reform. Here's our proof. And it's at this point that the judge, hopefully, would be in agreement with us and put us into what we call the 2-year sustainability period. That is a big goal. To get to sustainability means that the New Orleans Police Department for 2 years will self-monitor. We will be accountable, maintaining the reforms and moving forward. So a lot of narrative is about getting out. I think that's the wrong term. I think what we want to say is proving we have arrived. and that we are indeed that police department that constitutionally and ethically polices. It's become a part of our fabric, and we'll prove it for 2 years that we can do it without any federal oversight. So that's a big plus. It's showing that we have gotten to that stage. Okay, so that was goal number 2. So crime number 1, getting to self-sustainment and the consent decree is goal number 2. Goal number 3 does have to do with the recruiting and the retaining of our staff. New Orleans Police Department about 20 years ago used to have about 1,500 sworn officers. Today we're at 900, okay? Pre-pandemic we were around 1,200. So simple math is we're 300 officers short of what we have been accustomed to be able to operate with. That obviously impacts. It can be correlated to crime. Presence matters. The ability to answer 911 calls for service in a timely manner matters. And so the issue at hand is we've got to address how we service you based on the actual number we have today. So recruiting, our goal is obviously to get back to those numbers. But at the same time, I will not compromise, and no one in our department wants to compromise hiring the wrong person. We are not hurting that badly. So hiring the right people to give power and authority to is very, very important. I'm not playing short game. We can hire a lot of people and fill those seats, but I'm not playing short game, I'm playing long game, which is hiring the right person. And that means we have to process these people very clearly, and are they going to be successful? My ultimate measurement for deciding whether or not I am going to give you a badge and a gun, and I'm not kidding you, my ultimate measurement is when I meet new people we're thinking about hiring. I think, do I want my 91-year-old dad, do I want you going to that 911 call if my dad called? That is my ultimate measurement, is how well would you serve my dad? And that's who I want to hire to serve you. So those are the 3 goals, and I'm happy now to kind of, next week when I roll out to the rest of the department, there are going to be additional things. This is just an overview for you. I want to get us back to being brilliant in the basics. That involves even doing traffic enforcement. We don't see traffic enforcement very much anymore, but we need to get back to things like that. And so that's called being brilliant in the basics. So those are just kind of some of the things that I wanted to share with you. Some of you have heard this time and time again, and that's great, because I want everyone in this city to be on the, we are together in this. This is a full court press. You are indeed seeing already your crimes and your violent crimes dramatically dropping off. That is not by happenstance. That is a result of intentional, precision-based policing. That's the term I use, which is precision-based. How we police matters. And so with that, I'm going to open it up to the floor.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Superintendent
thank you.
Kirkpatrick. Okay. So in keeping with BGR's tradition, we have questions from the audience. Again, to submit a question, please use your phone to scan the QR code on the screen using the printed instructions. This will take you to the online form at bgr.org/QA, where you can type your question and include your name if you'd like to be identified. We've already had several come in, and which we appreciate. Okay, let's see. So, Superintendent Kirkpatrick, in keeping with goal number 3 that you mentioned, do you think more is needed in terms of salaries and benefits to recruit new police officers, Or do you think NOPD should focus on the factors that officers have cited beyond compensation, such as their concerns about internal discipline and promotions?
Yes.
Where would you start?
I think actually people are more concerned about the latter versus money. Money's important, money matters. And so when they look at, they have choice of where they can go in terms of agencies, and so money does make a difference. However, most people want to be in the city that they want to live. Therefore, if you can provide things such as a quality place to work, are they valued? Are they respected? Do they have the right equipment? Now, discipline has been a big problem in this agency. So I'll share with you what my position is. The small needs to be treated as small. The goal of discipline is corrective action, not how much I can punish you. It is what will it take to get you or me back on track? That's the goal of discipline. If correcting you and gets you back on track by a sergeant taking you outside and saying, don't do that again, and that's the correction, then by golly, let's do it that way, rather than doing documentation where you give me a folder 3 inches thick that is documented over whether or not you wore brown socks today. So we need to treat the small infractions not as federal offenses, but there's a reverse to that. We need to treat the big as big. Now, I'm strict. I do not apologize for it. So there are some things that under my leadership would probably find a person potentially even separated from this agency. Big needs to be treated as big. Small needs to be treated as small. And that is a huge morale killer if you just are constantly documented for the smallest of infractions. Anyone who has children, you know that you cannot exacerbate your child by just constantly critiquing them, okay? Morale has been an issue associated with promotional opportunities and assignments. And history here, culturally, is all about who you know and how well connected you are in the department. Well, that's the plus of hiring an outsider. I don't know anybody. So I'm not, obviously, I can't promote you because I know you. I don't know you. I can't discipline you a certain way because I know you. That's the plus of having an outsider. The problem is, with an outsider, I don't know you. So there are pluses and minuses, but that took care of that one major morale killer for officers was if they felt that, and not only a feeling, reality was it was all about who you know. That's been removed.
Thank you. Okay. Many in the community are concerned about a rise in crime involving juveniles. Mm-hmm. What role do you see the NOPD playing to prevent or deter juvenile criminal activity? And what other community resources would help with this?
Right, that's a great question. So the city hired Dr. Jennifer Avegno, and we're going to be partnering quite a bit on how to deal with holistically the crime issue, and it does tie it into juvenile crime. The issue is dealing with upstream factors that are not within the purview per se of law enforcement, but it does address such as early intervention, education opportunities, what we would call wraparound services. And if we can get involved, the police department should have a role, but not the lead, in dealing with the upstream issues that prevent crime. We are very active through our own programs such as we're going to start an Explorer post to get our kids involved in the police department. But in the NOLA coalition, I met quite a few nonprofits that are juvenile-centered. It's an issue of getting them in the right place, okay? We can help you know where to go to the neighborhoods that those services would make a difference, but that's why it has to be a partnership. And today, for me personally, not every chief and sheriff in the country has had a holistic approach to policing. I think you would find the New Orleans Police Department is pretty progressive in that way. We do see it as being an issue holistically, breaking the cycles above.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I love BGR audiences. We have so many questions coming in a wide variety of topics. One that I will ask is, we're wondering if, or people are wondering what is the best approach for the state to help NOPD, and have you met with Governor-elect Landry's task force on New Orleans?
Those are great questions as well. I've met with a couple of members on the transition team, not the entire team, and I believe I'm meeting with a couple of others. There have been some very specific asks that we have already made. So for instance, pardon me, I believe the governor is looking at giving us another full-time troop here in New Orleans specifically, which would give us LSP officers assigned to New Orleans. So we would just have more people, more law enforcement. So that was one. I'm going to be making a request through the transition team. One of the things I observed very quickly, and it stood out to me, and is a little bit of an inordinate from my background, and that is that your interstate systems that go through the city limits, right now, the New Orleans Police Department is the primary for any accidents on those interstates. That is not what I'm accustomed to. And so one of my requests would be that the state takes that back, that they become the primary jurisdiction on your interstates. So we obviously have had shootings on those interstates, but if you think about it, even for instance, when the fog was a problem the other week and we had to shut down the interstate, it was the New Orleans Police Department that took the primary on that, because that's when I went, oh my gosh, we're the primary? And that took a whole lot of our resources out from the city limits, and calls for service. All of those had to hold because we had to go do this interstate. That is not what I'm accustomed to. The interstates, I think, should go back to the state.
Okay. We have several questions regarding technology.
Yes.
In general, where do you draw the line between constitutional rights and high-tech surveillance?
Sure. Okay, well, most of you already heard, I've been an attorney for 33 years. I have a great appreciation for privacy boundaries. I am pro-privacy. I have a deep appreciation for technology. But I want my privacy protected just like you want your privacy protected. And because of that, I'm going to be in the role of leadership, making sure that we follow the laws of privacy associated with our technology have very strict laws. And I expect those laws to be absolutely followed by our staff, because I don't want to lose our technology either. And you want technology. You want to leverage what we can't do with technology. And it's a good thing, but it must be boundaried. And so that's my personal commitment. I don't want my privacy violated either. Constitutionally, we have a right to privacy.
And can you speak specifically to the use of drones?
Yes, sure. So our drone policy is very strictly structured right now, or drafted. It is not finalized. We obviously have been working with Washington, D.C., with the Department of Justice, making sure that they are in agreement and approve our policies. We put them out to the public for comment. We have actually listened to the public regarding some of the critiques. And so we have even limited in our draft, our use of technology, or those drones, even more. Drones, we will be using those drones to map crime scenes. We'll be using the drones in those kind of capacities, but we're not going to be using drones for when people protest or march. We're not using drones to document anybody. We have a right of free speech in this country, and it is going to be protected in this city.
Okay, great. Is community policing, where cops build rapport with the neighborhoods they patrol, is that possible with NOPD's low level of officers? And what are your strategies for improving community trust with NOPD?
It is absolutely possible, whether we have 100 officers or 1,100 officers. One thing that NOPD did structurally, and a lot of people don't realize it, but it is a unique and excellent thing NOPD did. And that is, we have full-time officers in every single one of those districts who are community liaison officers. They do not answer 911 calls. In order to be able to address community issues that proactively. That is community-oriented policing, and we have one officer per district. That's all they do. But then you can have the officers, y'all, the 8th district, those officers, my gosh, all they do is really interact with the 8 to 12 million visitors who come to our city. So that alone is at the fabric of what community-oriented policing is all about.
Thank you. Let's see. How will you train officers not to discriminate against people of color? And how will you fight systemic racism?
So actually, a part of our federal oversight is that we do, and we must prove to the court that we are bias-free in how we police the community. And so we do indeed train on, literally train. I was and have been a national instructor under FBI leadership group called the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Association, and one of my topics was implicit bias. And implicit bias matters. A lot of people do not realize that we have even biases, and so implicit bias is a focal point of how to raise consciousness that you may indeed have a bias you don't even realize you have. And that's what makes it implicit. When you raise a consciousness and you realize that you have biases, then you can actually manage them. And so that is something we are focusing on in our own training, the idea of implicit bias.
We've had several questions come in about the issue of recruitment and retention of officers. They all generally point to the direction of, can you elaborate a little bit more on
Sure.
your strategies
Sure.
for how you're going to achieve this?
Well, not under any credit to me. The city was already, at the time I came on board, working and hired consultants to do some media campaigns. You, within the last week, you hopefully have seen some of the fruits of that. If you drive down the interstates or drive around town, seeing some of our digital billboards that are recruiting billboards. Officer Harper, do you mind standing up? He is one of the stars of that billboard. And we also have just last week begun our television commercial campaign, and we will be running a television commercial campaign in the southern quadrant of the states, not just Louisiana. Wonderful thanks to Mrs. Benson and the New Orleans Saints and the Pelicans. We have been given the opportunity in the last few weeks to have our recruiting team set up at the entrance as people are going into the Superdome. and allowing us to recruit. And I believe up on the Jumbotron inside the arena, there have been a couple of join NOPD. We are doing a full court press. This year we had, I'm going to put you in the ballpark, about 18 officers who left and decided they want to come home. So that's a very good sign of health, that they want to come back to their home. And recruiting laterals also are good business. Lateral officers do not have to go through a 6-month academy. They're somewhat what we call a plug and play. These are officers who are already commissioned. They're just in another agency. So trying to tap into, I call it steal the cop program. I mean, poaching is, I'm not ashamed to poach. But, you know, a lot of agencies are losing officers and deputies like unbelievable. So they're all looking, they're commissioned, so why not bring them down here to New Orleans? But I would prefer to start with Louisiana, if possible. The closer to home, there is a better cultural transition.
Okay. That's a good lead into another question from the audience. Louisiana has many special police units. Here in New Orleans, there can be the Hano Police, the Levee Police, the Harbor Police. Right. Universities have their own police departments, right. Things like that. Do they compete with NOPD?
Absolutely.
And what do you do about it? How do you coordinate with these agencies or provide an effective alternative?
We are all competing. Absolutely. Every agency in this country is competing, but then you've got to look at regionally, where's your pond? Where are you fishing? And we're all fishing in the same pond locally, because regionally we're all going to compete for each other. Our salaries are going to be somewhat competitive, things like that. My attitude is that if we can be viewed, and I think we're getting there, as being the best of the best of the best of the teams, you will never hurt for people lined up at the door wanting to get on your team when you're the best. And so that is how competition puts you above other teams out there. They're all great, but I want New Orleans Police Department to be viewed as, we're the Olympic team. You want to be the best of the best, we're the Olympic team. And that's what I want to be.
Okay. We have several questions about making NOPD an attractive place to work for police officers themselves. Law enforcement is a rewarding yet challenging profession. Yeah. What resources are dedicated to the well-being of officers? What additional support and resources are needed? Yeah. And how will you make the police department attractive and fun?
I'm fun. I'll start with that. People do want to come to an agency. They want to, this is no different than your world. People want to come to work, enjoy their fellow coworkers. They like having fun. And this is a tragic world that officers work in. And they're called to people's hurts and pains and tragedies and needs, and so they are there as the peacemaker, and that takes a toll on them. So that is why their fellow officers, their supervisors, they need to give these officers and staff, not just officers, but staff, opportunities to enjoy coming to work, where they are going to have a little laugh, they'll be cared for. Wellness is a huge topic in law enforcement today. Under President Obama's 21st Century Task Force, one of the 6 pillars was all about wellness. We have come a long way to recognize emotional health is very critical in an officer's life. We are becoming trained to recognize it, to make sure that they know that it's very okay to get psychological and emotional help. I grew up in an era where you do not ever express that you are hurting. And that's why you, historically, culturally, in law enforcement, you've seen so much self-medication, drinking. It's because we didn't intervene. We told you, don't you cry. Don't you cry. You better suck it up. And it has caused tremendous harm emotionally for officers and staff. We've come full circle. And I will say, NOPD, I believe, has made it culturally, internally, where it is quite all right that you get help. And we also initiate that help for our officers and staff. If it were up to me, I'd have an AA meeting in headquarters. We have chaplains who come. We need to have it being okay. And some of us need to learn to cry. You need to go have a good cry, okay? Because it's healing and it's wellness.
Okay, very good. Oops, I just lost my... What NOPD public safety initiatives, non-NOPD public safety initiatives, such as contractors who handle traffic accidents or the Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit, are showing the most promise? What other opportunities exist to leverage and develop outside resources?
Okay, great. So Dr. Avegno has oversight of our Mobile Crisis Unit that is now taking calls involving those who suffer with mental health crisis. Rather than dispatching a police officer, we now, right at the point that the call comes in to 911, it is being diverted. And a team of mental health professionals are responding rather than us. That program just started, I believe, in June, if I'm not incorrect. And her team has already picked up 1,400 calls that otherwise uniformed patrol officers would have gone to. And that is excellent. That's what we want, right? We want professionals of mental health to handle as many of those calls as possible. With respect to the traffic contracting, I've never seen that anywhere. I think it's great. I believe it's called the OSS, I got it at reverse, thank you so much, the OSS group. They have also been picking up, I believe, around 1,700 traffic calls, somewhere in that ballpark. They also, they take, I think people can like write their experiences up, kind of like, I don't know. I don't do chat rooms or whatever we call those things, Instagrams or whatever they are. They do, the public does, and their responses have been excellent. I get to see them, and they are very high. They get very high credits on the quality and how they deal with people who are involved in minor traffic accidents. What all that does, it takes burden off of the 911 system because we don't have 1,200 officers. So it allows those officers to be able to handle the 911 queue a little better. So it's working very well hand in hand. Those are just two very good examples.
Okay. We have several questions related to drug activity. Violent crime often seems to stem from drug activity. How proactive is the NOPD when it comes to drug arrests? Right. And how can residents get support from the NOPD in shutting down drug hotspots that threaten their neighborhoods?
Right. So I know a lot of times people will call in and say, we have a drug house down the street. And they get frustrated because they don't see us. Now, it is very important that we educate our community. We actually may run undercover operations at that point. And you're not going to see police activity. But we want to have you call us and tell us because that then tells us where to go, okay? The other side, so that type of thing, people feel like, well, y'all aren't doing anything. And it takes a long time to develop a drug case on a higher scale, okay? Now, on street market drug activity, That does also involve a lot of times witnessing, hand-to-hand exchanges, and then making the intervention and building a case. And that is burdened on the officer in the patrol division who's running from call to call to call to call. And that also requires the drug activity is a proactive approach. So it's a yin and a yang right now for that drug market. What we want to do is disrupt the drug market. Okay, so have enough presence and arrest activities that it disrupts it.
Very good. We also have some questions about the French Quarter. What is the plan to reduce violent crime in the French Quarter? How can we eliminate guns in that historic, high-traffic, high-tourism economic engine for our city? Is there technology that we can deploy to more aggressively scan for weapons? Imagine a completely safe downtown enjoyed without reservation by residents and tourists.
Right, absolutely, I do envision that, and we are working toward that, and there is fruit on that. I think last week we got about 37 guns off of the streets in that area. Y'all don't hear about that, and we don't do a good job of putting that information out as much as we should. We do work with our federal partners a lot. Our federal partners, for the most part, are going to be undercover, and you don't see them. But we have a lot of staffing that we put into the French Quarter. That's why the State Patrol asking for a whole new team to come and help us. It would be to the French Quarter.
It would be to the French Quarter, okay. Superintendent Kirkpatrick, you made reference to the fact that you're an outsider, a newcomer to New Orleans. While you've only been here for a few months, have you observed anything unique about crime in New Orleans compared to other cities where you've worked?
We have a lot of, this is unique to New Orleans, but we have a lot of illegal vendor type of activity. So like an event like in the French Quarter, you see people with exotic animals and things like that. You're not going to see that in Seattle. You're not even going to see it in Oakland, and that's about as unique of a place as it gets, too. That kind of secondary market out there, black market, that is a very unique thing to New Orleans that I haven't seen anywhere else in my travels. Yeah. And can I mention something? So I just learned last week, like, what are we supposed to do with snakes that are not long, if they're less than 6 inches? And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, I never had to think like that in my whole life. So yeah, I mean, that type of thing, and will the zoo take them? I'm like, I've never had to think about that. So that's a unique thing. It interests me, but you aren't going to find that, y'all, anywhere else. Okay. Yeah.
Have you met with the district attorney, and where do you have common ground?
Oh, we have a lot of common ground. And yes, I have met with the district. I've met with a whole lot of folks. I met with our public defender. I've met with the district attorney. I've met with our U.S. attorney. I've met with all of our, like our FBI, what they call the agent in charge. I've met with our DEA, ATF. I've met with all these folks. We all have common ground. The DA, we do need to work more together about the holding and issues associated with bail, but we're a system, and so that I've met with the judges at the, what is that, the state court? It's our state court. Well, whoever, I met with a group of judges. And so, but I'm trying to be sure that I meet and that we work truly as partnership in it. And I'm not saying it to be trite. We got to be partnerships in it, right? So.
Wonderful. Last fall, New Orleans voters changed the city charter to allow city council confirmation of appointees from the mayor. Right. You were the first person to go through that process. Sure. What did you think of it?
I think it's a good thing. I actually think it's the right thing to do in a government situation. So because of the separation of powers that we have in government, and so this is how we do business. Government is how we do business of the people. And so you have my boss, who's been very supportive of me, Mayor Cantrell. She's going to be the one to say, you're my choice. But the city council is elected voice of the people as well. And so I do think that hearing processes that I went through, a confirmation process, is actually, you're getting as much of community voice as possible. And so I think it is a good thing. Now, anyone going through a hearing process, it's not necessarily a pleasant experience in the sense that you get peppered with a lot of questions and that type of thing, but I think that's fair play. And so I personally, I certainly was like, hey, let's do it. And they should, right? In my opinion, they should.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. You said there's a correlation between the number of officers and crime, yet crime has dropped this year with a low number of officers. So is there really a correlation?
There is a correlation. We do know that presence matters, okay? But strategy matters too. So I have been associated with a lot of police departments where all they have is presence but no strategy. And so when you don't have presence, but we could serve you so much better. We could get to call sooner. When you call for help, that means you want police now, not in a half hour and not in an hour. You want services now, so we can serve you better. Presence is a deterrence because although we've had a dramatic drop in our shootings, even recently, we are having a rise in our auto thefts, okay? We're having a rise in many of our property crimes because we can't do all things, and I already told you that people crime will take precedence triage. So it does matter. So we don't have enough officers out there to prevent that theft, all right?
Recently, we saw a focus downtown on preventing property crime, particularly vehicle crime, as you were just saying,
Right.
which was successful in reducing crime in the central business district, but ended up pushing crime across into the French Quarter.
That's right.
So how do you ensure that priorities are consistent across the different NOPD districts?
Okay, so they are. That is where each of our districts are like little cities to me, okay? So I can tell you that in the 3rd district, their number one issue of crime happens to be commercial burglary. That's their number one issue. Downtown, the number one issue is not gonna be commercial burglary, okay? So strategies for each district must be tailored to that community and that district. So the consistency that we must have, and what I am trying to do is actually put more staff, like out in the 7th district. I can tell you the 7th district, you already know this, y'all are New Orleans. The 7th district has a population of 85,000. Y'all, that's a really good-sized city. Your call for service load is 3 times the call for service load out in District 1. Okay, so that tells me alone I've got to put more staff out there. So I can't just equally put the same number of officers per district because what drives crime in this district is not the same that drives crime over there. So strategy matters based on the numbers we have.
Okay. What are you and the department doing to change the culture of anything goes among police officers who break laws and procedures by running red lights when there is no emergency, parking on sidewalks, parking on the neutral grounds, or talking on cell phones while driving?
Okay, all right, that's fair. So I think sometimes, and I'm not going to make an excuse for when we are in the wrong, I will deal with that, okay? I've already told you I'm strict, I'm going to be strict on certain things like that. Not everything goes, not under me. However, a lot of times people may not realize, hey, that officer just went through a red light, and they didn't have their lights on. That can actually be a safety issue. All I want to do is give you that sometimes officers have to think differently than what you were observing. If they were going to a bank alarm, they're not going with sirens, folks. That is a safety problem. They'll do sirens until they get close. Then they're going to shut it down. They may go through a stoplight without any lights and siren. You're thinking, what's up with that? It could be very well a safety issue for that officer, that they don't want to put anyone on alert that they're there. There are all kinds of things like that. Telephone calls. We do not have a sergeant might call Officer Harper and say, I need you, pick up that call. That officer is going to pick up that call. So you're going to see that officer speaking on the phone, okay? Those types of things. So that's why what I do is I want the totality of the situation. I understand you're seeing it from that perspective, but I've got to have the whole totality. Now, if you ran the stop sign because you were going to McDonald's and you're hungry, we got a different issue. Totality of the circumstances matter.
Very good. Traffic fatalities have risen dramatically in recent years. What role should NOPD play in making our streets safer for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists?
Well, you mentioned what role NOPD plays. That is one that is also a city policy about how you structure your roadway itself, like bike lanes, things like that. We know, though, that speed is one of the biggest drivers to a fatality. Running red lights are also high risk for fatality type of things. So speed and running red lights because of the T-bone, okay, is a very dangerous crash to have. So, and when I was talking about getting back to the basics, where whenever possible, I want the patrol officer to go back to doing just basic traffic enforcement to reduce those speeds, not to pull people over for an expired license plate, but for the high-risk types of traffic issues, speed and pedestrian issues, and where there are a lot of traffic collisions in major intersections. I just want to get back to those basics.
Sure. Okay. Let's see. We have several questions about how citizens can support the NOPD. There are many people who want to see you and NOPD succeed. What can citizens do to support the department as you are trying to make the changes that you outlined at the beginning?
Okay, I think that y'all have, at least in my opinion, collectively as a community, you are supportive of your police department. Words matter. So literally expressing when you see an officer somewhere just saying, hey, thank you for what you're doing, makes a big deal to that officer, and I'll tell you why. And even to the staff. Let's say you've got a call and you're going to talk with a records staff member, showing a little bit of patience with them. If you think about it, these officers, they cannot help if they're dispatched to a call that is an hour old. That's not their issue, that's our issue. That call was held, they go to that call, and the people are upset. And it wears on you after a while to be critiqued and yelled at and all of that kind of stuff. So the words matter, and so just saying something very kind to them is also very important to them. Thank you for saying that, but y'all have been doing that. That's my observation. It helps their morale, it helps their wellness. It really does. It matters.
Okay. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you, Superintendent Kirkpatrick, for being here today.
Thank you.
And thanks again to First Horizon Bank for its generous sponsorship of this breakfast briefing, and thanks to all of you for being with us this morning. We really appreciate you starting your day with BGR. Please remember to complete your online survey. It's very helpful to us in planning these and figuring out the future of this event. Also, a recording of today's breakfast briefing will be available on our website, bgr.org. It will also be rebroadcast on WWNO New Orleans Public Radio on Tuesday, December 19th at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. We hope this event has been informative and that we will see you again at future BGR events. Watch for a new round of research reports in the coming months. Follow us on social media, and happy holidays. Thank you.